Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be back here with all of you. We're starting a new series today called Resilient. It's about how to recover when life throws you a curveball. And I want to share with you in this series some of the things that God has been teaching me over this past year, things that I think can apply to all of us. If you missed it, I've been away because 6 months ago I had open heart surgery to repair a birth defect in my aortic valve. And I now have a mechanical valve that is keeping me alive, and I'm so grateful to God for his healing touch on my body. And just God's work of creation is just amazing. It's amazing what our bodies can go through and recover from, and the work of God in just even creating human beings and the ingenuity we have, the ability we have to be able to create the technology that can address the situation, the problem that I had. So I'm just so grateful to God. My cardiac nurse told me that I had about 2 years to live with the severe leakage in the valve. So I was dying, and I didn't know it. And the new valve was supposed to last for 25 years. They offered me the extended warranty, but I always turned down the extended warranty. It's always a scam. So, I might be rethinking that, but... So God brought me through a few things post-surgery. I'm on blood thinners now, and that's to keep clots from forming in the valve or in the heart around the valve. After I was home from surgery, my blood thinning level just started to go through the roof. Normal is 1.0. I'm supposed to be about 2.5, but I was testing out at over 7.0. And somewhere around 8 to 10, they hospitalize you, and they're concerned about a stroke. They're concerned about internal bleeding and stuff like that. And so they took me off the blood thinners, then put me back on them when the levels went down, and it shot right back up to around 7 again. Couldn't figure out what was going on. About 2 weeks of this roller coaster ride, and I was praying about it, and Holy Spirit said, check the bottles. So I went to my pill bottles, and there was a mistake in the labeling of the bottles. The 1s were in the 5s, and the 5s were in the 1s. And so I was supposed to take 4 per day, but I was taking 20 per day. And then I had an infection at the incision site that sent me to the emergency room, and they got that under control. And then my heart rate started to drop really fast. Normal heart rate, 60 to 80 beats per minute. Mine usually is about 46 to 50. I have a low heart rate. After surgery, my heart rate was 72, and then it just started to gradually drop over the next few weeks, and then it kept dropping, and my heart rate was into the 30s, and I was freaking out, of course, and I did some research, and Google is a really bad thing when you're going through something like that, because, I found out this medication that I was on, you're not supposed to be on it if you have a low resting heart rate, because it drops the heart rate by up to 20% more. And there were some nights where I thought I was going to die. I was freaking out, and I was sleeping on my couch at this point, so I could kind of put my feet up. And my kids, about 3 years ago, they gave me a Walking Dead blanket. So it's like Daryl from Walking Dead. So it's black, and so I was sleeping under this blanket on my couch. And, I'm thinking, Lord, my heart rate is going too low. I'm going to die. And my kids are going to come out of their rooms. They're going to find me dead under this Walking Dead blanket. I was just thinking of the irony of that. I was fine. I was never in any real danger, but I was still afraid. There was also a fire in the hospital in the cardiac ward when I was in there. So there was an electrical fire. They had to pull all of us out into the hallway. And if you want to picture an apocalyptic scene, just picture 30 heart patients at various stages coming out of surgery. We're all hooked up to machines and all that kind of stuff. And then the fire department's coming in. There's smoke in the hallways, and it was just crazy. The worst part, this is a funny story, the worst part is during surgery, they leave a wire inside of you that's wrapped around your heart, and it kind of comes up in 2 different places, wraps around your heart, and they use it to shock your heart if you go into cardiac arrest at any point after the surgery. And once you're out of danger, they pull this wire out. This is actually the worst part, and I discovered this a little bit too late because the wire's wrapped around your heart. There's a pull tab that's kind of right about here, and they just yank it out. And I was innocent to all of this. My cardiac nurse comes to me and she says, there's a nurse who's in training and, she needs to work. She wants to work on this ward and she needs to do these procedures 3 times. This would be her first time. And do you mind if she trains on you? And so I said, sure, no problem. I didn't think it was going to be an issue. I had no idea what I was getting into. She comes up to me. She says, hi. She says, I just watched a YouTube video about how to do this. And I think I'm ready. And it's starting to dawn on me, this may not be a good idea. So she puts a pen in this tab. She twirls it around and she's getting ready to pull. And the other nurse says, I've never seen anybody do it that way before. Now that's not what you want to hear. And the other one goes, no, this is how they did it on the video. I think I'm going to be able to get a good grip this way. So then she goes, ready on 3, 1, 2, and she pulls it out before 3. And it was good. They were professional, but my new valve has a ticking sound, and they started talking about how, oh man, that's a really loud ticking sound. Your wife, she's going to want to sleep in another room, and it's not what you want to hear. But anyway, I survived. I'm alive. I'm so grateful to God for healing that he has given to me for the extra 25 to 30 years or more, Lord willing, that he has given me to serve him and to live for him. And I want to use those years well for Jesus and for his honor and for his glory. And I want us to turn our attention to the scriptures. And I'm wondering if you would stand with me and let's read this scripture together. This is Psalm 13. It's known as a psalm of disorientation or a psalm of lament. And let's read it together. O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. Restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying, we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall, but I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good to me. You may be seated. Like I said, this psalm is known theologically as a psalm of disorientation. And disorientation is the condition of having lost one's sense of direction. And in the case of Psalm 13, something has happened in the life of this writer, and they are disoriented, and they've gone through some sort of trauma, they've gone through some sort of difficult experience, and they cry out, Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? And God, it seems that you have forgotten me. Anyone here ever felt like that? Lord, it seems like you're looking the other way. And God, I have anguish in my soul and I have sorrow in my heart. And every day, God, turn to me and answer me. I need to hear from you. I need to know that you are listening, that you are aware of what I'm going through. And we can experience disorientation in both positive and negative situations during the course of our lives. Positive disorientation is where the event is positive, but it leaves us still feeling disoriented. So you graduate from high school and you think, this is a great thing. But then you start thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Or you start college and that's a good thing, but you're still disoriented to some extent because you might be in a new city and a new setting and a new standard of what they're expecting. You graduate college, you find a job, and then you think, man, I wish I could go back to college. This is just so disorienting, the grind of every day going to work. You get married, you have a baby, now you're a husband, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a father, and that can be disorienting. And positive life events, they are good events, but they will change you. They change your life, and it takes time to get used to the new you, to the new life that you now have. When I was 19, I moved to California. I lived there for quite some time. Moved on back home, and I couldn't believe how my experiences had actually changed me. I was not the same person that I was when I left home. Back home, everything was the same. Everyone was doing their thing. My high school friends were kind of still involved with the things that they were doing. My college friends were still doing their thing. And they just assumed that I was the same person, but I was actually different on the inside. I was a completely different person. I had changed, and they had not. In California, I was working with people who are poor, people on the margins, people who are experiencing physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, people who were living in poverty, people who were either homeless or very close to it, kids and families with practical needs. And that experience changed my life. It changed my heart. It caused me to see the world in a different way. I came back home to friends who were still pursuing buying a car, getting in a relationship, getting a career, accumulating stuff. And I was disoriented. My world was turned upside down. And everyone thought, oh, this is Steve. He's the same as he was before. But inside, I had changed. I had a different heart for the Lord. I had a different relationship with God. I had a different point of view about what mattered in life. I had a different point of view about what really was important in life. It changed the things that I valued. I was a different person. I was experiencing disorientation. Came back home a different person. It was a positive disorientation. We can also experience negative disorientation. You lose a loved one. You grieve them, you miss their presence in your life, and it disorients you. You lose a relationship, you lose a job. You will feel disoriented. You'll ask, God, are you with me? God, do you hear me? God, do you see me here? God, I need some help. How long do I have to live with this anguish in my soul? You lose a business, and some have experienced that over the last 18 months. Your business is struggling, you feel like you're drowning, and you're saying, God, are you going to forget me forever? Why do I have all this anguish in my soul? You receive a medical diagnosis, it disorients you. When my dad passed away, I was about 34 or 35 years old. He had terminal cancer. Within a year, he was gone, and I was a different person after that. Something changed inside of me. Everyone else thought, here's Steve. He's the same guy we knew, but everything inside of me felt disoriented. My dad was gone. I didn't have a dad anymore alive on the earth. And maybe you're sitting here this morning or you're listening online and you've gone through something like that. Life has happened. COVID has happened. A death happened. Your marriage is ending or it's over. You lost a friendship. You lost a job. You've had an illness. You were just diagnosed with some medical problem. Life has thrown you a curveball and you just feel disoriented. Or maybe something good happened and you got married, you had a baby, you found some friends, you graduated from college, from university, and now you're entering the work world and you're starting a new job and you're not the same person that you used to be. You're now a husband or a wife or a father or a mother, and you're a teacher or a manager. And it's a positive thing, but it still changed you. 3 things that I've learned over the last year about disorientation. First of all, disorientation will come into your life. It will come. You cannot live for very long without experiencing it. Life happens, events happen, both good and bad. They will disrupt your life. And when they disrupt your life, sometimes they'll disrupt your faith. They disrupt your relationship with God in some way. Second, both kinds of disorientation are life-changing. We usually think that only the negative stuff changes us, but in reality, our life is changed and disrupted by both positive events and negative events. Third, overcoming disorientation is an essential life skill. You and I will always go through seasons of disorientation, then reorientation, always. That's a never-ending part of life. It's guaranteed. If you are feeling oriented right now and life is going great, at some point in time, maybe next year, maybe in 5 years, maybe next month, maybe tomorrow, something will come into your life, some event will happen that will disorient you, it will change you. People around you will think, oh, that's Josh, that's Jane. I know them, but deep down inside, you know that you're different. You've been changed by what you've experienced. So my question for you is, how are you going to navigate the season of disorientation? How do you find your way when everything seems strange, everything seems dark, everything just seems fearful, or everything seems different? How do you move from disorientation back to orientation? In other words, how do you recover? How do you navigate from being the person you were before the baby, before the marriage, before the job, before the loss, before the trauma? How do you go from being the former person that you were to being the person that God wants to help you to become? There's a story in the Bible about a woman named Naomi. Her daughter-in-law, Ruth, And Naomi's life is full of disorientation. She goes through just all the highs and all the lows of life. Check out chapter 1, verse 1. A severe famine comes on the land, and that is disorientation. That is drought. There's not enough food. That's disruptive. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. This family decides to leave their home, and now they're moving to a new place. They're trying to forge a new life. They're leaving everything behind. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites, however you say that, from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Now, anyone who's ever moved, you know how disorienting that can be. It takes a while to get settled. It takes a while to find a new church and find a new home and find new friends, and it takes energy. It can be stressful. Everything changes when you move, especially when you move to a new city or a new job or a new career, but eventually you get used to it and life starts to take on a new normal. And that's what happens here. Naomi and her family, they get settled in. They've moved from disorientation back to orientation, and life is starting to go well. And then verse 3 hits them like a ton of bricks. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. So everything's going great. Naomi's just starting to get oriented again, and her husband dies, and Naomi's back to disorientation. She's likely asking herself, how am I going to survive this? What's my future going to be like? She must have wondered, God, why did you let this happen? God, where are you? Do you care about my family? Her sons get married to some of the local girls, Ruth and Orpah. Okay, she thinks, life is turning up again. Life is looking up. There's a reason to have hope. I still have my sons, and now I have these daughters-in-law, and pretty soon there's going to be grandkids, and everything is going to be great. But then 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone without her 2 sons or her husband. Naomi just cannot catch a break. Without warning, Naomi's back into disorientation again. She gets ready to leave and go back home. And in verse 13, we get a glimpse into how disorientation has affected her life. Disorientation has caused her to feel abandoned by God. Listen to what Naomi says. She's talking to her daughters-in-law, and she says, things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me. She says, why would you want to come home with me? God is against me. God has raised his fist against me. My life is bitter. God has abandoned me. Have you ever felt like that? Your life is on a roller coaster from one tragedy to another, moving from one disorientation to another, from one struggle to another, and you finally say, God, why are you against me? God, it feels like you've raised your fist against me. Disorientation can make us feel that life is bitter. Naomi says at one point, she says, don't call me Naomi. I don't feel like Naomi anymore. She says, instead call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. Naomi means pleasant. Mara means bitter. Don't call me pleasant. Pleasant does not define my life anymore. Call me bitter. God has made my life bitter. Have you ever thrown a pity party, something like that before? You just looked at all the changes that are happening in your life and all that you're going through and just said, God, you have made my life so bitter. I wish I had never gone through this. I wish this change had never happened. I wish my son was still alive. I wish my marriage had never ended. I wish my friends had not abandoned me. I wish I had never taken this new job. I miss my old job. I miss my old boss. I miss my old coworkers. I miss my old city. And you just go into pity party mode and start feeling sorry for yourself. Anyone ever done that? I've had a few pity parties the last 6 months. I remember the night before surgery looking at my chest thinking, it's never gonna be the same again because they never quite put you back right. And now I have this Klingon ridge on the top of my breastbone that's just different, right? It's just different. I look part Klingon. And I have this mechanical valve inside my heart. And at one point in the hospital, I'm lying in bed at night and I suddenly realize that my heart is making a ticking sound. It's like a clock is actually inside of me. And I'm thinking, well, when I was on the good drugs, I was thinking that I was on Mars, actually. And looking outside the window, the landscape looked like I was on Mars. And that was quite a trip. But when I was off the drugs, all I could hear was this ticking sound in my chest. And this is the worst possible thing for me ever, because my whole life I have not been able to sleep in a room with a ticking clock in it. If I was at a friend's place, I would pull the clock off the wall, take the batteries out, throw it in the closet, put it under a bunch of pillows, do anything that I could to actually stop that sound from happening. But now I can't escape it, right? It's like here. So I had a pity party in the hospital. Woe is me. God, I'm never going to get a decent night's sleep ever again. This is going to be the worst. Disorientation can make us feel empty inside. Naomi says, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me? Well, one of her daughters decides to go back home, but Ruth decides to go on with Naomi. And this is what Ruth says to Naomi, and this is the key. This is what I want us to see. This is how Ruth and Naomi move from disorientation back to orientation. Ruth's response is the key. Look at this. Scripture says, but Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. The way that Ruth responds to this tragic life that they have been living in changes the trajectory not only of her own life, but also the trajectory of her mother-in-law's life. She says, wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. So how can I overcome disorientation in my life? Here it is. This is just an introduction to what we're going to talk about in the next few weeks. How do I overcome disorientation? First of all, embrace the God who created you. Embrace the God who created you. What does Ruth say? She says, your God will be my God. And this is so important. Please listen to this. Disorientation always has an effect on your relationship with God. Always. Disorientation will pull you away from God. It will. It's a normal and natural thing that when you experience disorientation, you'll be tempted to pull away from God. Even positive disorientation will do this. Let me explain how that works. You have the baby, you get married, you get that job, you graduate from college, and the lead up to all of those events, you've been praying. In the lead up to all of those events, you've been talking to God about how you wanted this to happen. And now you've got what you prayed for. You have the new baby, you have the new marriage, you have the degree, you've reached that pinnacle, and you stop praying in the same way. And the new thing that you have now becomes your focus. And God is no longer your focus. God takes a back seat. What I see happen a lot to young couples is they come in and want to talk to one of us at the church about the 7 or 10 year mark of their marriage. And they had all of this positive disorientation. They got married, got the job, got the kids, and they've stopped coming to church regularly. They've neglected their prayer life. All the good things in their life have distracted them. And when they go through a negative season, their life with the Lord is just not strong enough, and they're struggling to make it through, and their marriage is struggling. I just want to say, don't leave God out of the positive disorientation in your life. Don't leave God out of your positive experiences when things are going well for you. That's the time to lean into God even more. That's the time to trust in God even more, to hear from Him even more than you did before. And then negative disorientation pulls us from God because, like we've seen with Naomi, she becomes bitter, she becomes empty inside. She feels like God has raised His fist against her, and that's what negative disorientation does to us. We associate God with the negative event, and we assume that somehow God has caused this event, that God has brought this event upon us, and because we associate the negative event with God, we then remove God from our lives in some way. In our bitterness, in our emptiness, in our anger, we pull away from God and say, God, where are you? Why did you let this happen? But Ruth doesn't see it that way. Ruth sees, she says, your God is a good God. Even though we've been through all this stuff, your God is going to be my God because He is a good God. He is the creator God. He is the only one who can help me. He is the only one that can help us. And somehow I believe that God is going to work this for good in our lives. And so I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to trust in God that somehow He will save us. that somehow he will redeem us, that somehow he will take care of us. Your God will be my God. The Bible says that God works all things for good in the lives of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And when you're going through disorientation, the worst possible thing that you can do is associate that with God. God did not cause you to lose your job. God is with you in the midst of you losing that job. He is already working this out for good in your life. God didn't cause your spouse to pass away. It didn't catch him by surprise, but God is with you in the midst of it. And if you will trust him, he will work it all out for good somehow in your life. God didn't cause this birth defect in my heart, but he knew about it. And 2 years before I even knew about it, he caused me to faint. And that led to the tests, that led to the discovery of the severe leakage before it could cause any permanent damage. I had 2 years to live when I had the surgery, and I didn't even know I was dying. But even then, God was already working all this out for my good and for my healing. And that is the God that you serve. That is the God that you worship. He sees you. He knows your distress. He knows that you're going through this. The number one thing that will get you through this disorientation that you're facing is to cast all of yourself unto God, just like Ruth, saying, God, you're going to be my God. God, I don't know how, but I'm going to trust you that you're going to take me through this, that you're going to bring me back to orientation once again. Feels like everything's on shifting sand. Everything in my life is moving far too fast, but I'm going to trust that one day you're going to place me back on solid ground again. A big part of that kind of prayer also involves leaving behind your old gods. Naomi says to Ruth at one point, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same. Naomi says, go back to your people, back to your gods. Ruth says, no, your God's going to be my God. And in following Naomi and pledging her allegiance to her God, she's saying, I'm going to leave the old gods behind. Now, if you've never put your faith in Christ, if you've never given your allegiance to him and said, Jesus, you're going to be the Lord of my life, you're going to be the King of my life, then this is where you start. It starts with a simple prayer saying, Jesus, I am leaving behind my old gods. I'm leaving behind what I used to worship. I'm embracing you. I'm choosing to worship you. And you can pledge your allegiance to Jesus at any time, whenever you are ready. Maybe even this morning. You're here in church or you're watching online and you've been thinking, God, I want to give you my life. I want to give my life to God. I want to worship him. I want to follow him. And you can pray a simple prayer like that. Jesus, I take you as King of my life. I take you as Lord of my life. Forgive me for my sins. I'm turning to you. I'm trusting you to save me. And you can pray that prayer at any time. Maybe you want to even pray that prayer right now, even as I'm speaking. But following Jesus isn't just about pledging allegiance to him, it's about leaving behind your other gods. Many of us here have done that. We've placed our allegiance with Jesus, we've left behind our other gods, but what happens is life happens and we get distracted by things, we get disoriented, we start to turn to other things and give our attention to other things. And some of the gods that take God's place in our lives are things like the God of leisure, the God of addiction or sex, substance abuse, social media, your new job, your new position, your new family. One of the things that God actually showed me over the last 6 months is that I had placed my family above God. And those nights when I was falling asleep under my Walking Dead blanket thinking I might die tonight, I was thinking, Lord, I don't want to go. I don't want to be with you. I want to be here for my family. I want to see my kids get married. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. And at the root of that was I didn't trust that God was going to be able to take care of them if he took me home. And so I started to pray, Lord, I do want to be with you. Lord, I do trust you with my family. I do trust that if you take me home, you will take care of them. You will protect them. You will watch over them. And I've placed my family above you, God. And I surrender. I give you my family. I want your will, not my will. What God do you serve? What God do you need to leave behind in order to follow the one true God, in order to embrace God again in your life. And in turning back to God, we need to say, I'm not going to serve those other gods anymore. I'm not going to put those gods first. I'm going to worship Jesus. I'm going to put Jesus first. I'm renewing my commitment to worshiping him. Ruth also leaves behind her old life. She says, wherever you live, I will live. Disorientation is a sign that something is coming to an end in your life. You need to grieve the old. You need to take some time to mourn the old, but recognize that life is about disorientation and reorientation, and you will never be the same as you were before. The reality is that things have changed, time moves forward. This is why the rear view mirror in your car is so small and the front windshield is so large. It's because you can't move forward while you're looking back. We look back to see the past. We look back to grieve the past. We look back to check what's behind us, to understand what happened. But ultimately, the forward look has to dominate your view. So what are you thinking about? What dominates your thinking? Is it your past? Do you find yourself looking back to that era when you didn't have kids? Some people do that. It's normal and natural. But if that becomes what you dwell on, then guess what? Your kids are going to feel neglected, unloved, unwanted. So you've got to make the rear view mirror small and say, hey, I miss those times when we didn't have kids and we could just do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. We had more time on our hands, whatever. You've got to make that view small and maybe say, one day the kids will be gone. We'll have the house to ourselves. We'll have that time again. But for now, let's make the forward view the dominant view. We've got today, we've got our responsibilities. Let's enjoy our kids. Let's enjoy our life. Let's enjoy this moment, because otherwise one day in the future, you'll be looking back in another rearview mirror saying, remember when our kids were little? Weren't those great times? I wish we had more time. I wish we had done more things together as a family. I wish we had paid more attention in that moment and enjoyed that moment. And you'll not even be living in your future. You'll be living in the past still. This is the key. If you train your mind to predominantly focus on the past, you will miss everything in life. Because in every new season, you'll be saying, I missed that job. I loved that job. I missed that boss. I loved working for her. I missed those people. I loved going to school with them. Better to have a small rear view mirror and a positive view of the present moment that you're in than to have a large rear view mirror and constantly be missing out on your life right now. There's a place for grieving, but you can't go back. You won't ever be able to go back. You can't go back to the old. You've got to embrace the new. Recovery is not found in trying to recreate the past. Recovery is found in trusting God to create a new future. So Ruth says, wherever you live, I will live. I'm moving forward. She has the future in mind. The past is the past. It's gone. My husband's gone. The old future is gone. I'm embracing the new future, whatever that may be. Ruth also embraces relationships with godly people. She says, your people will be my people. You're going to need people in your life, good people with wisdom, people who are not against you, people that are for you, people who will give you good godly advice, people with character, because you can't navigate disorientation alone. You have to reach out to somebody. I'm going to talk about this one more fully next week. But I just want, for now, just to get that into your mind. You can't do it alone. Finally, Ruth embraces the new thing God has for her. She says, wherever you go, I will go. Whatever happens is going to happen. I'm going, God, with you. Whatever the new thing is that God has for me, I'm going to embrace it. I'll have more to say about that in 2 weeks. But as we close the service today, I want to ask you a question. Are you in a season of disorientation? Your season of disorientation may last for a long time, but God will redeem you and you will feel oriented again. One day, you're going to be able to say with the psalmist in Psalm 13, but I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he has been good to me. Let's pray together. Father God, I just pray over all of us in this room, everybody that's watching this service, either right now or later on this week. Father, there's some of us here who are going through a season of disorientation right now. We just feel like we're on shifting sand. And we're struggling to keep up with all of the changes that are going on within us and all of the challenges that we see happening around us. And it might be a positive move, but we're still feeling disoriented. It might be something really negative, really traumatic. Father God, I pray that you would help us to look to you. Pray that you would help us in this moment this morning to cast our eyes towards you and to be able to say, God, you will be my God. Apart from all else, everything that I'm going through, God, you will be my God. I will hold on to you. I will orient myself towards you. I will trust in you. Father, some of us need to just say, I'm going to leave the old gods behind. There's something that has a grip on our hearts that's really keeping us from you. And Father, I just pray that right now in this moment, we would be able to, with our will, say, I'm leaving that behind. I'm leaving the old God behind so I can fully give myself to God. Father, you have a new future for us. You have new relationships for us, new friendships for us. There's a new thing that you want to do in us through this season. I pray that we would learn to embrace the forward view. Some of us, Lord, that have just built up a big rear view mirror, and all we can see is what happened in the past. All we can focus on in the present is what happened back then. Father, would you help us to grieve those things? But Lord, as well, would you help us to make that rear view small so that ultimately we can see the future and the hope that you want for us. God, I pray blessing over each and every one of the people in this place today. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you and give you his perfect peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And all God's people shouted out, Amen. Have a fantastic week. Take care. Be blessed.